Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to start with your first biology chapter, biology class, and we will not go sequentially. We are going to start with an easy chapter which will be helpful for your upcoming board exams too, and a chapter which you have already studied in past, so it will be easier for you to recollect, to connect with the subject. Okay, the chapter is cell, the unit of life. The point, let's revise few things first. One is cell is the basic unit of life, and all organisms can be classified as single cell, that is unicellular, or are made up of many cells that are multicellular. Single cell organisms like bacteria and all are capable of independent existence and can perform all the essential functions on its own. One single cell performing all the essential functions like digestion, respiration, reproduction. So from this we come to a conclusion that cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. Since all the functions can be performed by unicellular organisms, so it is a functional unit and it forms the structure of the body, so it is the structural unit of life. Few more things which are important. The first cell was discovered, or first cell was seen by Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Nucleus was developed, was seen by Robert Brown, and further development took place, but the basic developments which came into being, the basic studies which we were able to do, was by the invention of electron microscope, through which we were able to see each and every minute detail of a cell. Then came cell theory. You have studied cell theory. Cell theory was given by two scientists, M. Sheldon and Schwann, and was modified by Rudolf Virchow. Right? What does the cell theory says? All living organisms are composed of cell products, and cell is the structural and functional fundamental unit of life which is capable of doing all the metabolic activities. This was modified by Rudolf Virchow by adding a simple line, that is omnis cellula e cellulae. Omnis cellula e cellulae, that means all cells arise from pre-existing cells. Then we have one more thing. We have studied that if we see a onion cell or a cheek cell, we will find that there is a outer covering which is called as cell membrane. In plants, it could be the outer covering, could be the cell wall, after that the cell membrane, and inside we have the nucleus, which consists of DNA. DNA, the genetic material, the hereditary material. The DNA and this content inside the cell membrane together are called as protoplasm. Right? Together they are called as protoplasm, cytoplasm, and this is the nucleus. The protoplasm is made up of cytoplasm and nucleus. Right? This nucleus is again bounded by a membrane. It is a membrane bound structure and is called the nuclear membrane. If this nucleus is having a membrane, then we call it as a eukaryotic cell. What we call it as? Eukaryotic cell. And other one is prokaryotic cell. We have studied that. Prokaryotic does not have a membrane bound structure, whereas eukaryotic cell doesn't only have a nucleus with a membrane bound, but all other organelles also which are having membranes around it, like the endoplasmic reticulum, the lysosomes, mitochondria, microbodies, vacuoles. All these things are missing in a prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cell can consist of ribosomes, which are non-membrane bound organelles. That means ribosomes are found both in prokaryotic as well as eukaryotic cells. Ribosomes are not only found freely scattered here and there, but they can also be found attached to the endoplasmic reticulum or between mitochondria and endoplasmic reticulum too. Another thing, with another non-membrane bound organelles is the centriole. So we have two non-membrane bound organelles, non-membrane bound organelles, right? What are those? One is your ribosomes and the other one is your centriole. You know, the cell has to have a centriole because it has to undergo a cell division. So for that we require a centriole. So it is a non-membrane bound structure. It can be present in a eukaryotic cell as well as a prokaryotic cell. Another thing which you have studied is cells differ greatly in size, shape, right? And you have studied the smallest cell to be the mycoplasm, smallest cell, mycoplasm, and the largest cell to be the ostrich egg. In human beings, we have the RBCs, which are quite bigger in size, nerve cells, which are the longest cells, and they differ in shape. Like some could be columnar, some are cuboidal, some are thread-like, some are polygonal. Now, let's discuss about a prokaryotic cell. It is represented by a bacteria. So the smallest cell is the PPLO, that is mycoplasma. It is a bacteria. Now when we are talking about a bacteria, it varies greatly in shape and size, and we have discussed about the four structures of bacteria, that is bacillus, rod-like lactobacillus, coccus, that is spherical, staphylococcus, Vibrio, that is comma shape, Vibrio cholerae, and spiralium, that is your spiral. It's rod like, it is circular, it's comma shaped, and it is spiral shaped, that is spiralium. Now, the important thing over here, a new thing which you are going to study is, we have studied that prokaryotes have a single cell wall or a outer membrane, but the nucleus does not have a nuclear membrane. The cell wall is surrounding the cell membrane, and inside the cytoplasm is a fluid matrix. It is a fluid matrix. There is no well-defined nucleus. The genetic material over here is basically naked, that is, it is not developed by a nuclear membrane, and it is a single chromosome or a circular DNA. Apart from this small circular DNA, which we call as the genomic DNA, the genomic DNA is the small circular DNA which is responsible for the carrying of the hereditary material. We have a smaller DNA which we call as plasmid, which lies outside this genomic DNA. This plasmid is actually there for certain unique phenotypic character of bacteria. Phenotypic character, do you remember the physical appearance of the bacteria? One such character could be resistance to antibiotics, bacterial resistance to antibiotic. This plasmid DNA is generally used for bacterial transformation with foreign DNA. When we want to have a change, when we want to study a change, we change this plasmid DNA and see the effect in human beings by implementing this DNA inside the this changed bacterial plasmid DNA inside the human beings. These prokaryotic cells do not have any cell organelles except ribosomes and in some cases centriole. They also have another character, specialized differentiated form of cell membrane called mesosome. They are essentially infoldings of cell membrane. The cell membrane is infolded, and this infoldings form a special structure which are called as mesosomes, which we will study in detail as the chapter as we go on with the chapter. Now, as we say that these prokaryotic cells do not have any other envelope except that of the cell membrane. So, this cell envelope is a very, very complex structure. Considering chemically, it is a very, very complex structure. If we discuss, this cell envelope is a three-layered structure. The outermost layer is the glycocalyx, then is the cell wall, and then is the plasma membrane. Glycocalyx, cell wall, and then is the plasma membrane. All these we are talking about, remember we are talking about the prokaryotic cell. So all these three together, combined together, to form what we call as cell envelope. This is there for extra protection because they don't have any other membranes. So each layer among these is having a distinct function, but together they have a single function, that is they form a protective unit. There are differences in the cell envelopes. According to this difference, we can classify these bacteria into two, that is gram positive and gram negative bacteria. How are we going to classify? Because these, in certain bacteria, they take up a gram stain and becomes gram positive, whereas when they do not take up a stain, while staining, when we want to study the bacteria, they take up a stain and becomes gram positive. If they do not take up that stain, we call it as a gram negative bacteria. Staining procedure, yes. Now, when we are talking about these three structures, glycocalyx, cell wall, and plasma membrane, glycocalyx differs in composition and thickness among different bacteria. In some, it is a very loose kind of a structure, slimy layer, while in others it is thick and tough, called capsule. Okay, like if it is a loose sheet, this glycocalyx, if it is loose sheet like structure, we call it as slime. What we call it as? Slime layer. And if it is a tough structure, then we call it as a capsule. We call it as a capsule. The cell wall determines the shape of the cell and provides strong structural support. The plasma membrane is over here is semi-permeable in nature and interacts with the outside world. We have studied that the cell wall is fully permeable. They have, they need not interact with the outside world. Anything can come in and go out. So the plasma membrane is basically a semi-permeable structure which is, interacting with the outer world, so that they are able to take in or give out the things which are not required. As I told you, a special membranous structure called mesosomes are also formed by the extension of plasma membrane into the cell. These extensions are they could be in form of vesicles or in form of tubules or lamellae. The exact function of these mesosomes are that they help the cell wall in formation, DNA replication, and distribution to daughter cells. So basically, mesosomes are a supporting structure to the cell wall. They help in respiration, secretion process, and also to increase the surface area of the plasma membrane because they have enzymatic content also. In certain prokaryotes, especially cyanobacteria, these mesosomes contains pigment, so are also called as chromatophores. Mesosomes containing pigments are called chromatophores. Now, this bacterial cell, a single cell, can be, we are discussing the prokaryotic cell with reference to bacteria. So this bacterial cell could be motile or non-motile. Motile means they are able to move or they are not able to move. If motile, if they are able to move, they have an extension in the cell wall which we call as flagella. This flagella could be single, could be arranged all over the body, or could be in a tuft, right? In a form of a tuft. This flagella has three parts. The flagella has three parts. What are those three parts? Three parts of flagella are filament, hook, and basal body. Filament, the whip-like structure. Then we have the hook and the basal body. Right. Beside this flagella, the filament is the longest portion and extends from the cell surface to the outside. Remaining part is there on the surface, that is your cell wall. Beside flagella, there are two more structures which are found on the surface of bacteria, but they do not play any important role, that is the pili and fimbriae. They are bristle-like structures coming out of the cell, and basically they help the bacterial cell to get attached to a surface, maybe a rock or a human body, anywhere. They get attached with the help of a fimbriae. Then we have, as I told you, these prokaryotic cells have ribosomes, because ribosomes are also not a membrane bound structure. These ribosomes are made up of two subunits, that is 50S and 30S. Together they form a 70S prokaryotic ribosomes. Ribosomes can have two subunits, and we name those subunits with the help of a number, that is 50S and 30S. They together form a 70S prokaryotic ribosomes. These ribosomes are the site of protein synthesis, and they can form a chain-like structure which we can call as polyribosome, or in short we can call it as polysomes. Polyribosomes or polysomes. These ribosomes are generally attached to a single strain of messenger RNA so that they can carry on the message from one part to another and also help in protein synthesis. For today, we will stop over here, and in the next class, we are going to start with the eukaryotic cell. Have a good day.